Hey everyone, what's going on? It is Brian, and we are back with another review. This time I'm going to do a fresh pop review for you all. And at the same time, dig into some other samples as well. What am I talking about? I am talking about the Blue Run Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, aged 13 and a half years old. So at least here, this bottle has had some slow, kind of quiet chatter, and I do want to say thank you to my friend Nick, who let me have this bottle to pop with you all tonight. So there are 10 different single barrels that were in this 13 and a half year run. This one that we're going to be tasting is barrel 10. So Nick, thank you so much. Nick has been a really great addition to some of the submissions we've had on this channel. He gave me a sample of the Angel's Envy, or excuse me, he gave me a sample of the Rabbit Hole Mizunara that we got a chance to taste, as well as some other things as well. So Nick, I greatly appreciate your friendship and your fellowship, and thank you for letting me have just a little bit of this bottle. So I'm going to talk a little bit while we just let this air in the glass, just ever so slightly. But again, there were 10 single barrels that were released in this particular run. So this, like I said before, is barrel 10. It is 124.73 proof. But I also have a sample of barrel 6 that we're going to try after, and then barrel 3 that we are going to try after. So I could have given this a little bit more time, but we're going to go ahead and try and dive right into this sample. Color is like a little unassuming. It's not as copper as like some of them that we might get. You may not be able to tell some of the legs on here. We're using kind of a small Weagland, but man, it is kind of clinging to there. Some nice veins going down, but it's a kind of copperish, kind of bright kind of color. Man, the nose immediately gives off some more barrel char influence, underlying with some cherry, some berry, like some mixed berry compote. Even further, some more vanilla. Man, it's still got these nice little strands. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to catch that, but some nice strands through here as it's sticking on the glass. It has some herbaceousness, like a little bit of grassiness. And again, to me, if it's not a youthful pour, that's usually noted as a positive characteristic. Some honey, like it's got a lot of the typical bourbon notes that we might, be looking for in a bourbon, let alone one of this age. But it does have like bits of smoke that kind of carry on. So you have just the typical barrel char, but then you're getting a little bit of smokiness that comes along too. It is a little bit toasted, a little bit smoky. As you inhale a little bit more deep, you have some of the warm leather notes. Good old oak, not really warm oak. It's kind of an older tone of oak. Yeah, this is kind of oak driven. Some good spices, and doesn't necessarily come off all that rich, but it does come off big. Let's go ahead and get into the palate. Wow, and it zaps you with a sweet candiness right away, but then immediately dissipates to some baking spices and oak. Hold on one second. Gosh, that initial surge is really candied, really sweet. It's like juicy fruit bubblegum, if you know what I'm talking about. Eventually that flavor goes away, but as soon as you put a piece of juicy fruit in your mouth, you get a big juicy fruit sweetness. Okay, that's what starts this pour off. And then what it does is it starts to push its way back through the mouth. So it's pretty coating. It's not too wide, but it does fill the palate. It rushes around. It leaves like a sugary trail. So it has vanilla and caramel mixed in with some baking spice notes. It doesn't have the smokiness quite like on the nose, but it does linger as if you ate like a toasted marshmallow, but you have a little bit burnt, and then you have that kind of trailing, kind of burnt charry flavor. That kind of lingers on the palate. Let's go. You know, actually lingering too, a touch of banana. Let's see if we can get. Yeah, the spices are really mixed in and really well integrated in this pour. So you get them right in the mid palate. They continue through the back palate. It does it's a slightly drying finish. It's not a dry finish, but it's slightly drying, and it lingers at least a medium to long length. Still kind of notice on the palate, but it does continue with like some like dry spice. It kind of reminds me that if the kind of thing that I liked about the Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered. I am going to actually pour a little bit more in the glass, but I'm going to go to barrel 6. Again, Nick, just a touch, man. We are not taking a lot. Look, we aren't even really past that the turn of the neck there. But let's go to 6 so we can see what another barrel might taste like. I mean, on the nose, it's pretty different. You get a lot of butterscotch notes right away on 6. It's dense and chewy, butterscotchy. It has a little bit more warm oak, warm woods, caramel, vanilla, some chocolatiness as well. Pretty smooth, pretty silky. Touch of earthiness in there. All right, let's go ahead and go to the palate. The palate is definitely less fruity and a little bit more spicy. So as soon as you take a sip, the front note is a little bit of caramel and vanilla. Then it moves into slightly bigger spices than we noticed in barrel 10. It's got cinnamon, it's got some black pepper, some nutmeg, some clove in there as well. I don't want to say earthy in terms of like Heaven Hill earthy, but it has some grounding notes. There's definitely some chocolate that leans a little towards cocoa powder or slightly dark chocolate, milk chocolate leaning more towards dark chocolate. You got some citrus that mixes in around these spices too. So maybe that's part of why it's like kind of striking right towards the middle. So in addition to the spice, you have some citrus that comes in, and then a good trailing amount of oak mixed in with the palate. It's slightly raw wood, slightly warm leather, and warm wood. A really good mixture, but again, pretty different. Let me go back to back to 10 real quick. Wow, I love how different these are. This one does carry all around in the pour more sweetness through from beginning to end. Slight bit more berry, little bit more caramely through and through, while the barrel 6 is more citrus. Let's go ahead and go to 3. This one is super desserty. So this one is really chewy, really dense, like brown buttery, buttery on the nose. It's super rich even on the nose. It's lots of brown sugar. All right, let's go ahead and dive into palate. Man, I'm loving this. I don't know what's special about this 13.5 year, but it's got oak really well placed. It's not tons and tons and tons of oak, perfectly balanced oak. Go in this again. Sweet. It's so desserty. Vanilla, brown sugar, caramels. It almost reminds me of the 2017 George T. Stagg, in that you got brown sugars and caramels and vanillas, all of that goodness going on. I'm not really thinking fruit, like a Tootsie Roll type sweetness. So think of like the type of chocolate you would consider Tootsie Roll. I don't know. It doesn't exactly mean milk chocolate or dark chocolate. It's Tootsie Roll, right? Chewy, sugary. That is here on the palate. A touch of fruit, but not at all the amount that we notice. Let's go back to 6. This is just rich in spice and citrusy. And then finally, again, with the one we started off with, 10. a little more fruits in there. Just a really good mixture if you want something that has, well, place spice as well as some fruit and some sweetness. Across the three of these, I am very impressed with the palette that I'm getting on here, and I can't exactly tell what it is. You know, at first I thought, I don't know, is it going to be kind of similar to what we noticed in Doc Swinson? But even Doc Swinson, I've had bottles that were specifically nutty. I had bottles that were more earthy, chocolatey, but nothing that brought necessarily the decadence that these do. So this Blue Run 13.5, regardless of what barrel, you're probably in for a treat. Have you seen this bottle? Have you tried this bottle? I'd love to hear if you find it or if you do. Have you tried the previous 13-year release or the presently dropping 14-year release? Are the results anything like what I'm talking about? I'd love to hear about it because I've not seen the 14-year drop in my area. Let me know in the comments. Please interact with me, subscribe, like, let me know that you're enjoying the content. And again, let me know if there are things that you want to hear me talk about in future episodes here on the channel. Thanks again for tuning in. Reminder that you can always tune into the Entry Proof podcast. That's a podcast that I do with Drew P. Whiskey. He's also here on YouTube, and we're usually live on his channel on Thursday nights. But you can also check us out at entryproofpodcast.com, and you can support us, patreon.com/entryproofpodcast. Until next time, everybody, cheers.